Alien girl knocked on the door at 3 a.m. and asked a human to carry her across the desert. The wind scraped against the metal walls, a constant howl that blended with the hum of Arlen's tools. He bent over the hover motor, sparks flickering in the dim light when the pounding started, loud, urgent knocks that cut through the night. Arlen set down his wrench, hand instinctively reaching for the rifle. "Who's out there at this hour?" he muttered to himself, peering through the peephole. A shadowy figure swayed in the sandstorm. He cracked the door. "What do you want?" The woman burst in, clutching the child, her violet skin pale under the dust. "Please, help us," she gasped, collapsing against the wall. Arlen caught her arm. "Easy now, what's happened? You look like you've crossed half the desert." She lowered the girl onto the cot, silver hair falling over her face. "She's burning up. Fever, and her legs, they won't move. I'm Nara. This is Lyric." Arlen nodded, grabbing his scanner. The device whirred over the child, readings flashing red. "Pulse weak, temps through the roof. Hold her steady." He injected the antidote, watching the numbers tick down slightly. "There. That should help for now. But those legs paralyzed, looks like. What got into her?" Nara's eyes flicked to the door, voice dropping. We can't stay long. No calls to anyone, okay? No medics, no authorities." Arlen crossed his arms, rifle still in reach. "Why not? Kid needs real help." She hesitated, then the words tumbled out. "There's a cult, the Wardens of the Veil. They think Lyric has to die at the ocean. Some prophecy about opening a holy gate. They've been chasing us for days." Arlen's jaw tightened, old war memories surfacing. Kids caught in the crossfire, gone too soon. Die? For some twisted faith? No way, I won't let that happen. Nara's shoulders sagged in relief. "Thank you, but we need to get to the Starwater coast. Healers there, maybe." He rubbed his chin. "Coast's far, but I know the routes. I'll take you." He paced the workshop, laying it out. "Rules are simple. We move at night. Keeps us cool and hidden. Daytime, we hole up in shade. And you follow my lead, got it?" Nara nodded quickly. "Whatever it takes." Lyric stirred then, her small voice weak. "It hurts." Arlen knelt, adjusting her on the cot. "Hey, kid, hang in there. We're gonna fix this." They gathered gear fast, Arlen stuffing water packs, each with 5 liters, into a bag. "These'll last if we're smart." Nara helped pack nutrient bars. 10 days worth? That should do." He rigged the harness from scrap, testing the straps. "This'll carry her on my back. Light but strong." Nara touched his arm. "You're really doing this? For strangers?" Arlen shrugged, a weary smile. "Guess the universe owes me one good deed." "Don't worry, I've dodged worse than cults." As the moons rose, pale and watchful, they stepped out, door clicking shut. "Stay close," he whispered. Nara glanced back. What if they find the workshop? He checked his rifle. "Let him try." From the ridge, the scout watched, scopes glinting. "Targets acquired," he reported. "Mechanics with them, moving out." Lyric's hands clung to Arlen's shoulders as they trekked, sands shifting underfoot. "What's that shiny thing?" she asked softly, pointing up. Arlen glanced at the stars. "Veil Nebula, kid. Like a big curtain in space." His muscles burned already, but he kept steady. "Ever seen an ocean?" Lyric shook her head weakly. "Stories say it's endless blue." He chuckled lightly. "Yeah, well, we'll see it soon enough." Nara walked beside, blades ready, eyes on the horizon. "You handle that rifle like a pro," she said quietly. Arlen grunted. "Old habits, war leaves marks." She nodded. "I get that. The Wardens, they were my world once, but not anymore." They covered 15 kilometers that night, dropping into a dip at dawn. Arlen staked the tarp. "In here, share the water." He scanned Lyric again. "Fever's holding. Good." Nara broke a bar for her. "Eat slow, sweetie." The sun baked everything to 50 degrees, tarp flapping. Arlen taught the dune game. Count 'em, 1, 2, keeps the mind off the heat. Far off, the patrol buzzed. "Specks on the sand," one said, "and we'll snag 'em soon." Night pulled them on, whispers and steps in sync. "Think we'll make it?" Nara asked softly. Arlen paused. Have to. Kids counting on us. The desert unfolded, moons casting shadows like old friends. Lyric murmured questions. Nara shared glances. Arlen led with quiet resolve. The coast waited, a promise in the dark. Lyric's fingers dug into the straps of the harness, her small body shifting slightly against Arlen's back as they crested the first dune. The night air carried a chill that nipped at exposed skin, stars scattering like distant campfires overhead. Arlen paused for a beat, adjusting his grip on the rifle slung across his chest. Thumb brushing the safety, a habit from old patrols. The sand whispered under his boots, each step sinking just enough to remind him of the weight he carried. Feels okay up there? Arlen asked, voice rumbling low. Glancing over his shoulder, his free hand reached back, patting her knee gently, reassuring, steady. Lyric's chin bobbed against his shoulder. Kinda wobbly, like riding a big sand beast. She giggled faintly, but her grip tightened, knuckles whitening. What's that bunch of stars, the bright ones? Arlen squinted up, muscles in his neck straining from the angle. That's Orion's belt, or what we call it back home. Hunters used to say it points the way. He shifted the harness straps with a quick tug, easing the pull on her limp legs. You got more questions than a recruit on day one. Nara matched their pace, her curved blades catching faint moonlight as she scanned the horizon. Eyes narrowing, hand hovering near the hilt like it itched for action. Every few steps, she glanced at Lyric, lips pressing thin in quiet worry. She's talking more. That's good, right? She murmured to Arlen, voice soft but edged with fatigue. Her fingers flexed, brushing dust from her sleeve, a small fidget to mask the tension. Arlen nodded without breaking stride. Yeah, fever's not climbing. Kid's tough. He felt Lyric's breath warm his ear. Hey, kid, oceans. They're like this desert, but wet and moving. Waves bigger than these dunes. Lyric's eyes widened, though he couldn't see it. He felt her lean forward. Really? Can I, touch them? Will my legs work there? Her voice hitched, small hands unclenching, then reclenching on his shirt. Nara stepped closer, her boot brushing Arlen's in the sand. They will, sweetie. Healers at the coast. They'll fix it. She reached up, tucking a strand of Lyric's hair behind her ear. A tender gesture, fingers lingering just a second too long. They pushed on, the desert unfolding in rippling waves under the twin moons. Arlen's legs burned from the extra load, but he kept the rhythm steady, left, right, scan ahead. 15 kilometers felt like 50 in the shifting sands, but dawn's gray hint finally edged the sky. He spotted the depression, a natural dip sheltered by low rocks, and signaled with a tilt of his head. Down here, good spot. Arlen knelt slowly, unbuckling the harness with careful snaps. Lyric slid into his arms. He lowered her to the sand, propping her against the smooth stone. Her legs flopped uselessly and she bit her lip, hands folding in her lap to hide the tremble. Nara unfurled the tarp, staking it down with quick jabs, her movements sharp, efficient, like she'd done this 100 times fleeing shadows. Water first. She uncapped a pack, holding it to Lyric's mouth. Sip slow. There you go. Then to Arlen, passing it over. Their fingers brushed. She pulled back quick, but her eyes met his, grateful, guarded. Arlen took a measured pull, the recycled water tasting like metal and relief. He scanned Lyric again, device beeping softly. Stable, no spike. He adjusted her position, sliding a folded cloth under her knees for support. Rest easy now. The sun rose fierce, heat slamming down like a hammer, over 50 degrees in no time. Under the tarp, they huddled close, fabric flapping in hot gusts. Lyric's fingers traced patterns in the sand, eyes drooping. Arlen leaned back against the rock, rifle across his lap, finger tapping the trigger guard idly. Tell me about the stars again, Lyric whispered, scooting closer. Her hand found his sleeve, twisting the fabric. Arlen chuckled softly. All right, that one's serious. Brightest out there, like a watchdog for the night. Nara smiled faintly, breaking a nutrient bar into pieces. She handed one to Lyric, then Arlen. "You sound like a storyteller, not a mechanic." He shrugged, popping the bar in his mouth. Chewy, bland. "War teaches you to fill the quiet, keeps the mind off other stuff." His hand rested on the rifle stock, thumb circling a worn patch, a silent anchor. From afar, the Warden patrol hovered on their skimmers, engines idling. One adjusted his binoculars, zooming on the tarp's shadow. "3 of them, clear as day," he said to his partner. The other nodded, hand on the throttle, itching to close in. "Wait for the word. They're not going far." Back under the tarp, Nara shifted, knees drawn up. "Why help us?" "Really?" she asked Arlen, voice barely above the wind. Her fingers picked at a loose thread on her sleeve. Nervous, probing. Arlen stared at the dunes. "Lost too many kids in the fights. Won't add one more." He paused, hand squeezing the rifle grip tighter. Old scars flexing. Lyric yawned, head lolling. "Count the ripples. Like you said." Arlen guided her finger to point. 1, 2... Yeah, that's it. Trust built in those small counts, shade deepening as the sun peaked. Hours dragged in the heat, breaths sinking in the stuffy space. Nara dozed fitfully, hand near her blades. Arlen watched the horizon through a tarp slit, eyes sharp, calculating distances. Night fell like a curtain, cooling the air. Arlen packed the tarp with efficient folds. "Up we go." He lifted Lyric, settling her in the harness, her arms looping around his neck, warmer now, less hesitant. "Missed the stars," she said, chin on his shoulder. Nara stood close, blades checked with a quick draw slide. "Let's cover more ground tonight." Her hand touched Arlen's arm, brief, solid. They stepped out, boots crunching in unison, the desert silence broken by whispers and shared glances. Far behind, skimmers hummed to life, but held back, shadows in the moon's glow. The trio moved on, bonds tightening like the harness straps, the coast a distant pull. The third night wrapped the desert in velvet dark, the twin moons low and swollen, throwing long silver trails across the dunes. Arlen's boots sank rhythmically, thump, slide, thump. Each step a quiet promise to the girl on his back. Lyric's weight had become part of his stride, her breath warm against his neck. She stirred, fingers loosening, then regripping his collar. "Arlen, what was your home like? Before all this?" Her voice floated small, curious, cutting the wind's hush. He exhaled through his nose, eyes scanning the horizon out of habit. "Outpost on a moon called Halden 9. Red dust, 2 suns that never agreed on when to set." He rolled his shoulders to settle the harness. "Had a squad. Good people. Lost most of them to a storm that rolled in faster than a skimmer." His hand reached back, palm patting her knee. Once, twice, steady reassurance. Lyric's fingers drummed a tiny pattern on his shirt. "Did you have a house? With a roof?" "Metal shack. Leaked when it rained." Which was never. A soft chuckle rumbled in his chest. "But it had a porch. Watched sunsets there with a buddy named Jax. He owed me 20 credits for a bad bet." Nara walked a half-step closer now, her boots whispering beside his. She tilted her face to the moons, silver hair catching light like liquid metal. "Veltrian children hear a different story," she said, voice low and melodic. "The star whale swims the void between galaxies, carries the lost on its back." She swept her hand in a slow arc, fingers painting invisible currents in the air. Lyric leaned so far forward Arlen had to counterbalance. "Does it have a name?" "Eloria," Nara answered. "She sings in colors we can't see, guides ships through black holes." Her free hand brushed Arlen's sleeve. Accidental, then lingering a heartbeat longer. Gratitude, maybe something softer. Arlen's gaze flicked left. Faint lights winked on the far ridge. 3, maybe 4, then vanished. Nara's hand snapped to her blade hilt, knuckles whitening. "Scouts!" she breathed, eyes narrowing to violet slits. "Could be traitors. Could be worse." Arlen veered right without slowing, guiding them down a shallow trough between dunes. "Stay in the shadows. Quiet steps." He pressed 2 fingers to his lips. Universal signal, then pointed ahead. Hearts hammered louder than boots as the lights swept once more and faded. They pushed another hour in tense silence, moons climbing higher. Lyric's questions returned in whispers. If the whale's real, think it could carry us to the ocean? Nara smiled, the expression small but genuine. If anyone could, it's Eloria. Dawn bled pale across the sky. Arlen spotted the rock outcrop, jagged pillars like broken teeth. There, shelter. He knelt, unbuckling the harness with careful clicks. Lyric slid into his arms. He lowered her to a flat stone, propping her back against cool granite. She poked her limp legs, frowned, then folded her hands tight in her lap. Nara unfurled the tarp with sharp snaps, driving stakes deep, muscles flexing, jaw clenched. Storm's coming. Feel it in the air. Arlen piled rocks along the edges, hands moving fast. Grit caking his palms, focus razor sharp. Lyric's scanner chirped, fever spiking again. Arlen dug out the last antidote vial. Hold still, kid. He pressed the injector to her arm. The hiss was soft, the relief immediate but partial. He wiped her forehead with his sleeve, fabric coming away damp. You're tougher than half the soldiers I knew. One Nara knelt opposite, hand resting on Lyric's shoulder. Squeeze gentle, thumb tracing small circles. Breathe with me. In, out. Her own breath shook slightly. She hid it behind the rhythm. A low growl rolled across the desert, thunder without clouds. Winds gusted sudden, whipping sand into stinging sheets. Big one, move, Arlen barked, scooping Lyric against his chest. They scrambled into a shallow cave carved into the outcrop, backs pressed to rough stone. Nara stretched the tarp across the entrance, fingers fumbling stakes in the rising gale, hair lashing her face like silver whips. Arlen anchored with boulders, shoulders straining, sand blasting his cheeks. Brace it! Here! He wedged his body against the frame, boots digging for purchase. Inside, the storm slammed full force, wind screaming past 100 kilometers, tarp bulging inward like a lung. Lyric buried her face in Arlen's shirt, trembling hard. He wrapped an arm around her, large hand patting her back in steady counts. Flaps, 1, 2. Match the rhythm. You're safe. Nara crouched beside them, voice rising over the roar. The whale faced storms, bigger than worlds, sang louder than thunder. She took Lyric's hand, interlacing fingers, warm, unyielding. Eloria dove through the dark, carried a child just like you. Lyric's eyes, wide and glassy, fixed on Nara. Did the child get scared? Terrified, Nara admitted, squeezing tighter. But the song held her, like this. She hummed, a low, lilting note that cut through the howl. Arlen joined the count quietly. 3, 4. His free hand rested on the rifle across his knees, finger tracing the safety, ready but calm. Whoas! 50 kilometers away, Marshal Corrin stood outside his command tent, robes snapping in the wind. Storm reports crackled on his comms. He slammed a fist into his palm, eyes alight with fervor. The veil speaks. They'll be blind. We strike at first light. His second-in-command hesitated. Sir, visibility 0. Corrin whirled. Exactly. Divine cover. Back in the cave, the gale peaked, then ebbed, tarps sagging with relief. Sand piled high against the entrance but held. Arlen eased the fabric aside an inch. Dawn's light filtered through swirling dust. It's passing. Nara brushed hair from Lyric's face, fingers lingering. You were brave, little whale rider. Lyric managed a sleepy smile. Sing it again? Arlen settled back, rifle across his lap. Rest first. Song's waiting for night. His hand found Nara's in the dim. Brief squeeze, then release. The storm had reshaped the desert outside, but inside something steadier had taken root. The coast called louder now, carried on the wind's dying breath. The storm had scrubbed the desert clean and cruel, leaving dunes sculpted into knife-edged ridges that caught the moonlight like broken glass. Arlen folded the tarp with sharp, practiced snaps, sand cascading from the fabric in dusty waterfalls. His shoulders carried a deeper ache now, but he rolled them once, settled Lyric into the harness, and cinched the straps tight. She pressed against his back, lighter than the day before, her breath shallow and warm through his shirt. "Everything looks wrong," she whispered, small hand gesturing at a fresh ridge that hadn't existed yesterday. Like the desert swallowed itself and spat out something meaner. Arlen exhaled a quiet laugh, the sound rough in his dry throat. "Storms do that. 8 nights left. 7 if we don't waste steps." He uncapped the nearest water pack, tipping it to her lips first. 3 measured sips. She swallowed, then chased a stray drop with her tongue, eyes closing in gratitude. Nara crouched nearby, wringing condensation from the tarp's underside into a dented flask. Her fingers worked fast, but the yield was pitiful. Barely a mouthful. She wiped the rim twice, counting droplets like coins. "We're bleeding water faster than we're making it," she said, voice low, almost apologetic. She passed the flask to Arlen. Their knuckles brushed, lingered, then parted. "Field rations taught me tricks," he replied, taking a single pull before capping it. "We'll stretch what we've got." He tucked the flask into a side pocket, fingers brushing the rifle stock. Reassurance in metal and wood. Lyric's head lolled. Exhaustion had muted her endless questions. Arlen felt the shift, reached back, palm cupping her cheek to steady her. "Eyes open, kid. Just a little longer." Nara fell in beside him, blades glinting as she drew one an inch, tested the edge with her thumb, slid it home. "She's fading in this dryness," she murmured, breaking a nutrient bar into quarters. She fed Lyric piece by piece, slow, patient, like coaxing embers to catch. They crested a wind-carved rise near midnight. A lone fire glowed ahead, small, deliberate. Marshal Corrin stood in its circle of light, dark robe embroidered with swirling veil sigils, 2 guards flanking him with stun staffs humming low. Arlen halted, rifle up in one fluid motion, finger hovering off the trigger, stance wide to shield the others. "Peace, traveler," Corrin called, voice rich with sermon cadence. He stepped forward, palms open. "One child's blood opens the gate. Thousands live because of it." Arlen's jaw locked. That's murder dressed in scripture. The words came quiet, edged with old battlefield steel. Lyric's fingers fisted his shirt. He felt the tremor run through her. Nara's blades whispered free, curved steel catching firelight. "Step back," she warned, shifting left to cover their flank. Her knees bent, weight balanced on the balls of her feet, predator stance. Corrin's smile thinned. "More come at dawn. You only delay the inevitable." He retreated a pace, guards melting into shadow with him. The fire crackled, then died as they vanished. Arlen lowered the rifle slowly, scanning their gear with narrowed eyes. His boot nudged a water pack. Something inside clicked wrong. He knelt, fingers probing. A thumb-sized beacon, red light pulsing. "Tracker." He crushed it beneath his heel. Crunch of plastic and circuitry, dust settling like judgment. Nara's hand flew to her mouth and then dropped. "How long?" "Long enough to paint a target on our backs." Arlen stood, wiping grit from his palms. "We burn ground tonight. No stops till the moon's dip." They pushed harder, boots carving frantic furrows. The moon stretched their shadows into long, accusing fingers. Arlen's thighs burned, lungs rasping dry air, but the rhythm held. Left, right, breathe. Lyric's weight dragged like guilt, yet anchored him to the moment. Halfway through the march, she stirred. "Wail? Sing again?" Voice cracked, barely audible. Nara walked backward a dozen steps to face them, blades sheathed now. Aloria breached a nebula of fire. Stars rained like diamonds on her back. She swept her arms in slow arcs, painting the story in moonlight, eyes bright despite the strain. "Did the diamonds hurt?" Lyric asked, fingers drumming faint on Arlen's collarbone. "They tickled," Nara said, smiling through cracked lips. She laughed so hard the void echoed. Arlen felt the laugh in his chest. Small, unexpected. He adjusted the harness, easing pressure on Lyric's knees. "Keep talking. Keeps the thirst off." Nara fell back in step. "You ever laugh on the battlefield?" "Once. Jax bet me I couldn't hit a drone at 500 meters with a sidearm. Lost 20 credits and a week of rations." His voice softened at the memory. His free hand flexed. scars pulling tight. In a rare lull, thirst clawed Arlen's throat like sandpaper. He paused, uncapped the flask, allowed himself one swallow, metallic, warm, precious. The kid's warmth on his back filled a hollow he'd ignored for years. Purpose, unasked but welcome. He capped the flask, tucked it away, and marched on. Dawn bled pale across the sky. Arlen spotted a narrow crevice slicing a low cliff, deep enough to swallow 3 bodies. In here! He eased Lyric down. Her legs flopped uselessly. She bit her lip, hands folding tight to hide the tremble. Nara rationed water, 2 sips each, no more. She counted drops aloud, voice steady but eyes betraying worry. We're at half. Need a miracle or a miracle's worth of dew. Arlen checked vitals. Fever stable, lips cracked like sun-baked clay. You're holding, kid. Proud of you. He propped her against the cool wall, sliding a folded jacket under her head. They huddled under the tarp, heat pressing like a fist. Arlen leaned against rock, rifle across his lap, finger tapping the barrel in thought. Nara sat close, knees brushing his. You're past with the Wardens? Give me the short version, he said, voice low. She twisted a blade strap until the leather creaked. Vow, sister. Swore to guard the text. Found 2 versions. One gentle, one hungry. They burned the gentle one. Her voice cracked on the last word. She swallowed it back. Enough for now, Arlen said. His hand covered hers on the strap. Squeeze, release. The contact lingered in the air between them. Far off, Corin stared at a dead beacon screen. He slammed the console. Plastic cracked. They think darkness hides them. The veil sees all. His second hesitated. Storm cost us a day, Marshal, Corin whirled. Then we take it back with interest. Under the tarp, the sun climbed merciless. Breath synced in the stifling shade. 3 heartbeats marking time. Lyric's fingers found Arlen's sleeve, twisting the fabric. Night soon? Soon, he promised, voice rough with thirst but sure. When darkness finally folded over the desert, Arlen packed the tarp with efficient folds. He lifted Lyric, settling her in the harness, her arms looping around his neck with new familiarity. Ready for another lap? Ready, she echoed, chin on his shoulder. Nara checked blades with a quick draw slide, then touched Arlen's elbow. Solid, brief. Let's outrun the shadows. They stepped into the cool night, boots crunching in unison. Behind them, skimmer engines growled to life, distant but closing. The desert stretched endless, thirst a constant companion. But the trio moved as one. Wounded, resolute, the coast a shimmering promise on the edge of exhaustion. The 6th night pressed heavy and starless, clouds smearing the moons into bruised smears of light. Arlen's boots dragged furrows in the sand, each step a battle against the harness, digging bone deep into his shoulders. Lyric's weight burned like a brand, her breath coming in hot, ragged puffs against his neck. Small fingers knotted so tight in his shirt, the fabric bunched white under her knuckles. He swallowed sand and thirst, rifle thumping his hip with every labored stride. Hang on, kid. We're burning moonlight, he rasped, voice cracking like dry clay. His free hand reached back, palm splaying wide between her shoulder blades, pressing hard, as if he could pour strength straight through his skin into hers. Nara ghosted beside him, blades half-drawn, hilts slick with sweat. Her eyes blazed violet fire, darting to every ripple of shadow. They're here, she hissed, knuckles popping as she clenched the curved steel. Smell the oil on their skimmers. Her shoulders rolled, predator ready to spring. 2s, a mechanical whine shattered the hush. 3 sand skimmers exploding from the dunes, engines howling like banshees. Headlights stabbed white, pinning the trio in blinding cones. Wardens vaulted down, 6 in total, stun staffs crackling electric blue, blades flashing hungry arcs. Arlen dropped to one knee, swinging the rifle up in a blur. Down, he roared, the word ripping raw from his chest. The first shot cracked, rifle kicking hard against his wounded shoulder. A warden spun mid-leap, crumpling face first into sand. Nara launched forward with a snarl that tore the night, blades whirling in lethal figure eights. Steel rang on staff. Sparks showered. She parried a crackling blow, riposted with a slash that opened a warden from collar to hip. Blood hissed on hot sand. "Not my daughter!" The scream shredded from her throat. Pure maternal fury. She spun low, hamstringing another attacker. The man howled, collapsing. Arlen fired twice more. Second shot grazing a skimmer's fuel line. Third punching through a chest plate. Return fire answered. A plasma bolt seared across his left shoulder, flesh sizzling. Pain exploded white hot. He staggered but didn't fall. "Nara, left flank!" He twisted, shielding Lyric with his body. Her terrified cry slicing deeper than the wound. Blood soaked his sleeve in seconds, dripping warm onto the sand. Lyric sobbed against his neck, tiny fists pounding his back. "Arlen! Arlen, it burns!" Her voice cracked high with panic. "I've got you!" He gritted teeth, swinging the empty rifle like a club. The butt connected with a warden's temple. Crunch of bone. The man dropped limp. Nara danced death, blades a silver blur. She blocked a staff, kicked the attacker's knee inward, then drove steel through armor seams. Another lunged. She caught the blade between hers, twisted and sent it spinning away. "Come on!" She taunted, voice raw, eyes wild. A final slash opened the last warden's guard. He fell gurgling. Silence crashed in, only panting, the hiss of cooling blood, and distant skimmer engines fading. Arlen sagged to his knees, shoulder a furnace of agony. Blood pulsed between his fingers as he pressed the wound. "Kid, talk to me." His voice shook. He reached back with trembling fingers, brushing her cheek, sticky with tears. Lyric's sobs hitched. I'm okay, but you're bleeding." Her hands fluttered over the wound, smearing red on his shirt, panic fluttering like trapped wings. Nara sheathed her blades with a metallic snick, hands shaking so hard the hilts rattled. A long slice across her ribs wept dark. She pressed a palm to it, wincing sharp, breath whistling. We got them." Tears cut clean tracks through the grime on her face. Relief, terror, guilt crashing together. She dragged the bodies into a dune hollow with frantic strength, stripping gear. 3 water flasks, 2 liters each, med patches, a cracked comms unit crushed beneath her boot. Arlen slumped beside Lyric, tearing a strip from his shirt with his teeth. He bound his shoulder one-handed, hiss of pain, jaw clenched so tight the muscle jumped. "Patch yourself," he ordered Nara, voice rough but urgent. She obeyed, slapping a med patch over her ribs. Sharp inhale, eyes squeezing shut. Scanner in hand, he swept it over Lyric. White salt crystals glittered on her wrists like frost under moonlight. Readings flashed. Sea syndrome, ocean mineral starvation, blood crystallizing, paralysis from a deliberate suppressant. The truth hit like a second bullet. "Nara!" His voice cracked wide open. Betrayal, then understanding flooding in. "This is why the legs, why the fever?" He met her eyes, blood still dripping from his fingers. She dropped to her knees in the sand, ribs heaving, tears spilling unchecked. "I injected the suppressant to buy time. Thought you'd abandon us if you knew the truth." Her hands clawed the dune, nails digging furrows, shoulders shaking with sobs. "Please don't leave us. I was scared." Arlen's uninjured hand cupped her face, thumb smearing blood and tears, rough but tender. "No hate, no leaving." His voice steadied, eyes burning fierce. "Coast fixes this. We fix this. Together." They moved on, wounds hastily bandaged, adrenaline a jagged lifeline. Arlen limped but refused to set Lyric down. The harness cut fresh grooves, but he welcomed the pain. Nara walked pressed to his side, one hand braced under his elbow. Support, apology, promise. Lyric clung like a burr, face buried in his neck, whispering whale-song fragments between hiccuping breaths. From the blood-soaked sand, a surviving warden groaned, helmet cracked, vision swimming. He watched the trio vanish into the dark, mechanic and woman moving like apex predators carved from vengeance and love. "They fight like the old gods," he rasped into his dying comms. "Prophecy, lies." Dawn clawed them into a narrow crevice, walls tight, cool, defensible. Arlen eased Lyric down, her eyes fluttered, exhaustion winning. He checked bandages, his own shoulder pulsing fire, Nara's ribs seeping through the patch. She curled nearby, hand pressed to the wound, breath hitching with each inhale. "We're closer than ever," Arlen whispered, voice hoarse but unbreakable. He pulled Lyric against his good side, arm wrapping protective, chin resting on her hair. "No more secrets. We're family, blood, sand, and all." Nara nodded, fresh tears carving rivers. "Family out on the road." Her fingers found his, interlacing tight, squeezed desperate, knuckles white. "I'll tell you everything, after the sea." The group huddled in the dim, wounds throbbing, hearts racing, the night's violence of Forge hammering them into something unbreakable. The coast loomed brighter, a beacon through pain and revelation, the final nights ticking down like loaded rounds. Dawn bled across the sky in violent streaks of crimson and bruised purple, the canyon walls rising like the jaws of some ancient beast. 30 meters of sheer, knife-edged stone that swallowed sound and hope alike. Arlen lurched forward, boots scraping raw furrows in the gravel, his wounded shoulder a screaming furnace that sent fresh blood pulsing through the soaked bandage. The harness cut deeper than ever, Lyric's limp weight bowing his spine until his knees threatened to buckle. Sweat and blood mingled, dripping from his chin in thick, dark drops that hissed on the hot sand. "Keep moving," he ground out, voice shredded to gravel. His free hand clawed the canyon wall for balance, fingernails splintering, leaving bloody streaks on the rock. Every breath was a knife twist. His vision tunneled, but he forced one foot in front of the other. Nara staggered at his side, one arm clamped across her sliced ribs, fingers slick with crimson, pressing the med patch that peeled away with every gasp. Her silver hair hung in blood-matted ropes, whipping across her face like accusations. Violet eyes blazed wild with exhaustion and terror, darting to every shadow that danced on the walls. "Echoes above us," she rasped, head snapping skyward. "They've boxed us in. Gods, they've boxed us." Her voice cracked high, panic clawing free. "Wait." High Warden Malvec's voice thundered from the cliffs, amplified by a vox horn that turned it into a god's decree. 20 armed silhouettes bristling with rifles, their scopes glinting like predatory eyes. "The gate demands blood," the words slammed down like hammer blows. "Surrender the child or die in this grave of your own making." Lyric jerked awake in the harness, a raw animal scream ripping from her throat. "Mother!" The single word shattered the canyon, pure, desperate truth that echoed off the stone and stabbed straight into Nara's heart. Lyric's small hands clawed at Arlen's neck, nails digging bloody half-moons into his skin, her entire body shaking with terror. Nara froze mid-step, face crumpling like parchment in flame. Tears flooded instant, carving clean rivers through the grime and blood on her cheeks. I... She reached for Lyric with trembling, blood-slick fingers, then collapsed to her knees in the dust, palms slamming the ground, shoulders heaving with sobs that tore from her core. "She's mine! My daughter!" The confession exploded out, raw and ragged. "I hid her bloodline to keep the cult from claiming her. I lied to protect her." Her hands clawed the sand, nails breaking, knuckles splitting, as if she could dig a hole deep enough to bury the guilt. Arlen's heart slammed against his ribs like a trapped animal. He spun on his heel, shielding them both with his body, rifle raised one-handed, despite the agony that whitened his vision. "Stop lying!" The roar burst from him, cracked and broken, echoing off the walls. But his storm-gray eyes softened as they locked on Nara's. Fierce, forgiving fire. "We're family now, on this road. No more hiding." He dropped to one knee in the blood-soaked sand, yanking Lyric free of the harness. She tumbled into his arms, he crushed her to his chest, good arm locking around her tiny frame, chin pressed to her hair. Then he reached for Nara, hauling her into the embrace, blood smearing between them in a gruesome seal. Lyric was sandwiched safe in the middle, 3 heartbeats hammering in frantic unison. Arlen's knuckles went white with desperate strength, his wounded shoulder screaming. but he refused to let go. Nara buried her face in the crook of his neck, sobs muffled against his skin, hot tears soaking through his shirt. "Vow, sister, I read the true text," she choked out between gasps. "When the last child touches the sea at dusk, the dead shall be named, and the living shall forgive." They twisted it into sacrifice. Her fingers dug into his back, clawing, clinging like a drowning woman to driftwood. Malvek's laugh rolled cold and cruel from above. "Lies of heretics! The gate thirsts!" Rifles clicked in chilling unison, 20 bolts chambered, scopes tracking. Arlen's gaze swept the canyon in a frantic arc, old prospector's rope anchor glinting high on the wall, a relic from a lifetime ago. He shoved the rifle into Nara's hands. "Cover me!" Then he knelt before Lyric, cupping her tear-streaked face with blood-smeared palms. "Not a bunny around the tree. You remember?" His voice shook, but his hands guided hers to the rope, fingers overlapping, teaching in frantic, urgent bursts. Lyric nodded, tears streaming, small face fierce with determination. "I can do it, I promise." She wiped her nose on her sleeve, then seized the rope, tiny knuckles whitening. "Distract them, now!" Arlen bellowed, standing tall despite the agony. He fired upward, shots cracking stone, sparks showering like deadly rain. Nara unleashed a barrage, rifle bucking in her grip, her scream of defiance raw and primal. "Come down and face us, you cowards!" Nara hurled fistfuls of sand into sniper faces, blinding, roaring. "For my daughter!" Lyric scrambled up the rope, tiny body swinging, arms burning. Halfway, she feigned a slip, screaming, letting go. Cultists leaned over the edge, rifles lowering in shock. But she caught a hidden ledge, swung hard and kicked loose a cascade of boulders. The rock slide thundered, stones the size of skimmers crashing down in a deafening roar, burying 3 wardens in a storm of dust, screams, and snapping bone. The canyon wall cracked open on the far side, an escape path carved by a child's courage. Chaos erupted, rifle fire stitching the air like angry hornets, rocks shattering into shrapnel. Arlen grabbed Nara's hand, blood-slick, unbreakable grip, hauling her through the gap as bullets whined past. Lyric slid down the far rope, landing in his arms with a sob. He clutched her to his chest, legs pumping despite the white-hot agony in his shoulder. "Run! Don't look back!" Nara fired over her shoulder, covering their retreat, tears flying as she screamed defiance. "You'll never touch her!" From Malvek's vantage, the child's cunning shattered his world like the boulders below. The rock slide swallowed his men, doubt cracked his fanatic mask, eyes wide, mouth working soundlessly. "Impossible! The prophecy?" His rifle trembled in his hands, faith fracturing. The trio burst from the canyon into open dunes, pulse racing, blood trailing in dark ribbons, but alive. Arlen's laugh broke free, wild, pained, triumphant, echoing into the dawn. He pressed Lyric's face to his good shoulder, Nara's hand still locked in his. Fingers interlaced, so tight bones creaked. The final nights loomed ahead. The seas glow a distant, shimmering promise through tears, blood, and unbreakable resolve. Sunset detonated across the Starwater coast in apocalyptic fury, waves slamming the shore with bioluminescent violence, each breaker exploding into a galaxy of sapphire stars that hung suspended in the salt air before shattering into glittering foam. The sea itself lived, pulsing with inner light that throbbed like a cosmic heartbeat, cliffs framing the spectacle like the jaws of creation itself. Arlen stumbled onto the glowing sand, knees finally buckling under Lyric's weight. Blood from his shoulder painting crimson footprints that the surf devoured in hungry, glowing tongues. His breath came in ragged animal gasps. The harness straps had carved raw trenches across his chest. Skin peeled back in places, exposing muscle that twitched with every heartbeat. "We made it," he choked, voice utterly shredded, tears mixing with blood as they carved through the grime on his face. He collapsed to all fours in the luminous foam, Lyric tumbling free from the harness. The water kissed her ankles, blue light flaring blindingly bright around her skin, salt crystals dissolving in a hiss of steam and healing vapor. Her legs twitched, once, twice, then held her weight for the first time in weeks. She stood trembling, eyes wide as galaxies, the ocean's glow reflecting in her tears. Nara dropped beside them like a broken marionette, ribs heaving in wet, bubbling gas, blood frothing between her fingers where the med patch had failed completely, the slice across her torso gaping open. Silver hair whipped in the salt wind like a battle standard. Violet eyes blazed with awe, terror, and maternal love so fierce it bordered on madness. The sea, it's answering her. She lunged for Lyric, hands shaking so violently she nearly fell face first into the surf, tears carving clean, shining rivers through the gore and dust on her cheeks. My baby! My baby! A lone skimmer roared from the dunes like a demon unleashed. Malvec, blade drawn and gleaming with fanatic fire, robe torn and bloodied, eyes manic with the desperation of a man whose god was dying. He leaped down, sand exploding under his boots in a crater of rage. Finish the ritual now! The scream cracked the sky itself, raw and unhinged. The gate thirsts for blood! Give it to me! Arlen surged up from the sand, rifle raised with his good arm, finger bone white on the trigger, shoulder screaming in white-hot agony that blurred his vision. Over my corpse! You'll never touch her! The words tore from his throat like shrapnel, primal and unbreakable. Blood dripped from his elbow in steady rhythmic plops. But he held the line. Body a battered, bleeding shield between Malvec and the child he'd come to love as his own. Nara shoved Lyric behind her with a mother's ferocity, blades flashing free from their sheaths, steel singing a deadly hymn as she crossed them in a blazing X of defiance. You'll die before you lay a finger on my daughter. Her voice shattered into a banshee wail that rivaled the surf, maternal fury exploding like a supernova, tears flying with every savage gesture. Lyric stepped forward through the foam, small, trembling, but radiating unbreakable light. The surf lapped her knees now, then her waist, glowing brighter with every inch she claimed. If I touch the sea, the old world of fear dies. Her voice rang clear and pure, cutting through the chaos like a bell forged in starfire. The new one begins, with forgiveness. She waded deeper, water to her chest, then chin. The ocean erupted in ecstatic response. Waves rearing like cobalt titans, light pulsing in rhythmic, earth-shaking heartbeats that vibrated through bone and soul. Lyric raised her arms to the dying sun, tears streaming but chin high, voice rising in a chant that shook the cliffs. I name the dead. Ilara, lost in the refugee fires. Jax, Arlen's brother in arms, gone to the storms. Mother's sister, taken by the Veil's lies. Kyle, Malvec's own son, buried in the camps. Each name tore from her like a soul freed from chains. The waves shimmered blindingly, ghostly figures of light forming in the spray, faces of the lost materializing in radiant detail, smiling, weeping, dissolving into starlight that rained back into the sea. The beach trembled violently. Cliffs groaned and cracked as if the planet itself wept in release. The air thrummed with electric forgiveness. Cultists poured from the dunes in a black tide. Dozens, then scores, rifles raised in a wall of death. But as Lyric's voice soared, weapons lowered one by one, clattering into the sand like broken idols. Tears cut through dust-caked faces. Hardened warriors dropped to their knees in the glowing surf, sobs racking their frames in waves of cathartic surrender. The light, it's inside us. One choked, pressing fists to his chest as if to hold his shattering heart together. Malvec lunged through the chaos, blade arcing in a murderous silver blur for Lyric's throat. Arlen fired, plasma bolt grazing the High Warden's arm, spinning him in a spray of blood. Nara intercepted like a storm-given form, blades clashing in a shower of white-hot sparks that lit the dusk. For every name you twisted, for every child you doomed. She drove him back with savage, tear-streaked strikes, steel singing, salt wind whipping her hair into a halo of vengeance. Lyric turned in the surf, water cradling her like a mother's arms, glowing so brightly she became a living star. Malvek, your son died screaming your name. Name him! Let him go! The high warden froze mid-swing, blade trembling, face crumpling like parchment in flame. Kyle! The name escaped as a broken, guttural sob that tore his soul open. He dropped to his knees in the luminous foam, weapons sinking into the waves with a final, defeated hiss. There is no gate. There never was. His voice shattered completely, centuries of zeal crumbling into salt and regret. He clawed at the sand, fingers bleeding, as the truth annihilated him. Arlen lowered his rifle, tears carving shining paths through blood and grime. The gate was never a place. It's how we live after we stop hating. The words boomed across the beach, carried by the surf's apocalyptic roar. Raw, triumphant, eternal. The ocean answered with cataclysmic grace, a final wave rearing high as the cliffs themselves, cresting in a wall of pure, blinding light that blotted out the sun. It crashed down in a thunderous baptism, washing over every soul on the shore in a torrent of salt, starlight, and absolution. Cultists wept openly, rifles sinking forgotten into the glowing depths. The light pulsed once, twice, then settled into a gentle, eternal glow that bathed the world in forgiveness. Nara collapsed beside Arlen in the surf, blades falling from numb fingers to vanish beneath the waves. It's over. It's over. She pulled Lyric from the water, mother and daughter clinging in a desperate, sobbing embrace, laughter and tears mingling in the luminous foam. My brave girl, my star. Arlen sank to his knees beside them, exhaustion and relief crashing harder than any wave. He wrapped his good arm around them both, blood, tears, and seawater mingling in a sacred seal. We did it. We're home. His voice broke completely, the dam of years of pain and loss shattering into a flood of raw, healing sobs. He pressed his forehead to Lyric's, then Nara's, 3 hearts beating as one in the glowing aftermath. From a weeping cultist's eyes, once a zealot forged in hate, now broken open and reborn, the glowing sea felt like judgment transformed into mercy, lifelong chains dissolving in salt, light and the unbearable beauty of grace. The war ended not in death, but in surrender, raw, beautiful, irreversible, the beach trembling under the weight of 1,000 reborn souls. The covenant blazed alive in the waves, names remembered, forgiveness chosen, a new world forged in the crucible of blood and starlight. The drama peaked in apocalyptic silence, the ocean's glow eternal, the family's embrace the first stone of a future built on love. Peace settled over the Starwater coast like a warm blanket woven from salt and starlight. The glowing waves lapping gentle now, soft kisses on the shore that whispered promises of healing. Lyric hugged Nara tight in the foam, small arms locked around her mother's neck. Mom, can we stay here? Her voice trembled with hope, legs steady in the surf for the first time, muscles flexing strong under the ocean's gift. Arlen smiled through cracked lips, blood and tears drying on his face. We'll build our home by the sea. He ruffled Lyric's hair with his good hand, gentle, fatherly, then pulled Nara close, their foreheads touching in quiet vow. Healers from coastal towns arrived at dawn, violet-skinned Veltrians with glowing salves and scanners confirming the miracle. Sea syndrome cured, one said, voice awed. Ocean minerals rebuilt her blood overnight. Lyric's legs strengthened daily. She splashed in the shallows, laughter echoing like bells. The group claimed a cliff spot high above the waves. Wind-swept grass, endless view. Arlen crafted water filters from scrap and salvage parts, hands steady despite scars, building for the growing towns below. Clean water for everyone, he muttered, testing a valve, satisfaction warming his chest. Nara taught painting to local children on the beach, silver hair catching sea breezes, her brush strokes bold and free. Mix the blues like the waves at dusk, she'd say, guiding small hands, smiling real. wounds fading to stories. They founded the Veil of Names Foundation together. Simple at first, a cliffside hut with lanterns crafted from recycled glass. It aided war orphans, teaching them to light lanterns at sunset, each carrying the name of someone missed, floated on the glowing tide. 5 years blurred in sunsets and salt wind. 13-year-old Lyric journaled from their cliff home, quill scratching steady. Our house stands strong above the star water. Dad builds filters that save lives. Mom paints murals of star whales on town walls. Together, they help kids release lanterns, names glowing as they drift. Arlen and Nara watch from the porch, hands entwined. Fingers interlaced natural now, scars telling tales. Lanterns floated below, a river of light on the sea. The old world died that night, Arlen said softly, squeezing her hand. In the storm, and the choice, Nara replied, leaning into him, head on his shoulder, piece deep. The desert journey's scars faded slow, nightmares occasional, but met with shared whispers and dawn walks. Hope grew quiet but sure, rooted in daily acts. In a final echo, former wardens, now volunteers, stood on the beach, lighting lanterns with trembling hands. The old world's death in every glow, one murmured, watching his float, tears falling free, chains long broken. The covenant lived eternal, in names remembered on the waves, love chosen over hate. A new era born from sand, sea, and unbreakable family. The lanterns rose higher, stars joining the dance. The cliff home a beacon for all who sought forgiveness in the light.